But to start off, when you're doing the torso, there's three main shapes you got to be concerned with, and then viewed from the profile, um, they're the head, the rib cage, which is usually tilted like this, and then the pelvis, which is usually tilted like about like this. Those are the three main driving shapes, and like within that, you got your skull inside the box up here. Oops. And 1 second, I'm going to check if this is the right image resolution. Yeah, it's looking a little beefy. I'm going to reduce that actually. Resolution 6K. There we go. That should be much better to work in. So, all right, so you got three boxes like this, and you're looking at basically like the profile view of the torso, more or less. But we're to kind of, well, we're going to be including the head in a lot of our torso drawings this evening. So let's get this kind of, you can use this kind of like basic shape like this for your head, maybe like a little eye socket in there. So the next thing you got to do, this is actually looking a little bit high. Fix that though. Top of the ribcage should be about here. Next thing you want to do is you want to maybe plot out how the spine goes from the insertion point, the base of the head back here. And now the spine is divided generally into three sections. At the top of the spine right here, got this kind of the top of the spine is this kind of C curve. Midsection of the spine right here, kind of an S curve. And then you got kind of another C curve that is like down here where the tailbone, where like the tailbone is, and where it inserts into the pelvis. With that in mind, you can divide you can use the kind of the division that you got in the different sections to sort of help you visualize a little bit of where to place the kind of the egg shape for the rib cage. Keep in mind the angles that you have on these too. Also, I think my pelvis is a little bit far down, so I might want to raise that up a bit. Maybe back here. I can correct the other drawing a little bit. The pelvis, generally speaking, you can think of as being kind of like a dish, sort of, if you really want to simplify it. So you got like the head that's kind of like an egg with a face mask on it. You got the spine that's coming down here, inserting into the top of this giant egg shape. That's the rib cage right here. Spine's continuing down in its S-curve pattern into this sort of dish right here. Dish or bowl, almost. Putting the top plane of that dish there. And of course, you want to have like a sense of the center line of the torso down to the pit of the crotch, like that. Now, from here, you can take like roughly the length of the head here, and that's generally about as long as your sternum is. The sternum is, of course, this thing here. Which is where the muscles of your body kind of emerge out from here, from these bones that they are the origin point of. So what we got here for this sternum should be about something like this. And here's where things start getting a little tricky. You got the collarbone, this thing here. Collarbone is a really, really tricky area of the torso. A good way to simplify this really complicated shape is to think of, well, here's like the top of the sternum or whatever. A good way to think of it is to think of it like a pair of bicycle handlebars, in that they kind of like, they come out the sides, they go up and back, kind of like that. The way the collarbone works is that if you raise and lower your arm, you can actually put your, I want you to put your fingers on your collarbone here. Full hand there. Once you put your fingers on your collarbone there and kind of feel it a bit as you raise your shoulder up over your head, and kind of feel how it has kind of a range of motion from this kind of anchor point here. Not that extreme, obviously, but that's just like, just to make the point. So, roughly about the top of your shoulder is where the collarbone up here. And that's just the half of it. The other half of it is when you start getting into the back here. And look at this really complicated, like, how does that work? How does that really bizarre thing work? Well, we'll get into that a little bit, although that is something that's going to take more than one try to really grasp. But check this out. You see this guy from the rear here? There's the collarbone right back there. I'm drawing through the figure. That's the collarbone. I'm drawing like with X-ray kind of view where the collarbone is, right there. And then see these shoulder blades back here? Your shoulder blades kind of wrap over your torso in the back there, but they have like this little kind of bony protrusion that curves up and forwards and connects with your collarbone. About right like there, you see. So keep that in mind. Like, you have these kind of like triangular shapes back here that are kind of, we're looking at the torso from the rear here with the spine behind us. Those things are kind of like a pair of triangles on the upper back that are kind of curved over the torso and like laying against it. And they move around too. Like, you can, if you put one arm over one of them, you can kind of feel it move around when you move your arm up, when you move your other arm up and down and stuff. So keep that in mind. They move around. They push out and stuff. And they are influenced by the positioning of your shoulder and your arm. So take blue real quick. So then you got like those little shapes that are coming off of it there that connect up with the collarbone, and then the collarbone inserts back around, kind of like this. This is not anatomically accurate, but this is just to illustrate the idea of like how they kind of zip around the shoulders like that, fused in the front against the anchor point. So one way to kind of wrap your head around it is you could think of that space at the top of the torso as being this kind of like a ring, so a flexible ring, so to speak, to sort of simplify the idea for you in your head. You got this geometric torso egg, the simplified ring there, and throw a little head in there. And another thing about the collarbone is to pay attention to is the neck muscles. See those puppies there? We'll get into a few of them right now. But those are really flexible. We'll get more into the flexibility of them as we're able to. But here, let me do a quick demonstration. First, we need a skull. So I'll throw a skull in here. This is a really simple skull, real quick. Put the zygomatics in. Not going to be the world's best drawing, but it's okay for this. So, we got that skull, and I'm going to throw in some more of the bone anatomy. So we got the spine here. We got our friend the sternum right here. That's about the length of the head. Then we got this kind of egg shape coming up around, the symmetrical egg shape right here for the torso, like so. And that's another, I'll get into that a little bit more, but how to carve out the that kind of empty space down here in the egg shape at the bottom of the rib cage. But I want to get through the rest of the collarbone stuff first. So I think that's a little bit out of proportion, but I'll figure that out a little later. So we got the collarbone coming up here. Collarbone coming up here. I'm going to draw through the figure for the shoulder blades. They're wrapping around the rib cage, so I'm going to draw this kind of ellipse shape and help me visualize how It wraps through the rib cage. And very important here, you see these right here? That is a socket joint, basically, where your arm, the top of your ball of your arm bone connects, right in there. And that is part of your shoulder blades. So I'm going to add that real quick. We'll go a little bit over arm anatomy too from this, at least for the upper arms anyway. Let's put that on both sides. I'm just going to use a simple ball and socket approach right here. So I'm just trying to abbreviate what the idea is. Don't worry, we're going to be doing draw-over practice on really good anatomy drawings and on studio trigger drawings where we try to take the information from really good anatomy drawings. RGAD, that would be the acronym of really good anatomy drawings. Yeah, we'll be studying our RGADs after this, really good anatomy drawings after this, and doing drawovers and some copy studies, kind of absorb them a bit. Then we're going to be trying to utilize them with doing some drawover analysis of probably some photographs too, but studio trigger drawings. It's the main thing we're going to be doing after that. So we want to learn how to apply this stuff into dynamic animation. So here we go. We got this lovingly drawn upper torso. Now, take my red, add a little fleshy underside to the chin, right here. Add some ears. That up real quick. So, these neck muscles, first one goes like this. It inserts into roughly about this part of the collarbone, right there. That's the first one. The next one branches out from this. It's actually part of that, but it's good to remember how this works. And you can actually see this with that little gap in here on bodybuilders and really lean people. Another thing to note is the presence of the Adam's apple about here, roughly, which is more evident on men than women, generally. So let's go ahead and draw like the other one of those in here, on the other side. Not going to be a perfect drawing, but that's okay. This is just like a quick illustrative study. So then, next part of the neck muscle is the neck muscles that actually wrap up through the back. You can see some of them here on this drawing that I made. And you see they actually, like, they connect up to the base of the head right there. They kind of form this, like, this huge space in the back here, where like a little bit of the spine is more visible right there. They kind of come down to these insertion points at the top of the shoulder, like so. Like this entire muscle group right here. And it actually goes under the, part of it goes under the shoulder blades. Not. See? In any case, for our purposes, looking at it from the front, just keep that in mind when you're doing this from the front, basically. So just you can assume that like this thing is going to be continuing on up there to the back of the neck, basically, or whatever. But the important thing we're going to be paying attention to is, so a little bit of the edge of this bone should be just by itself right here, but the muscle is going to come down around like this, like, and insert, like, this is like, you can actually feel up on your shoulder where that is, especially if you raise your arm. That little divot in the top of your shoulder, you can feel back up along your neck muscles and feel it trail up into the base of your skull when you raise your arm up. So that's not all. This thing is kind of like a big beef jerky meat strip with a gap in it. And you can feel that gap too. If you push your shoulder forward and up, you can feel this gap around your collarbone area. That gap is going to be something a little bit along about here, let's say. Right there. And we're going to be getting more into that. But check this out. Look, you got this section here that's inserted right here. It's about so length right there. Then you got a little bit of bone that's sticking out over there. Then you got this next section down here. Like that. And of course, like, following that kind of bicycle curve. Right there. But it's a little bit unclear, actually. I think that one's a little bit far down, too, so I'm going to fix that a bit. Up there. So make this more like a bicycle handle. We'll fix it in post. Got this little area here, that little area here, little area there. All right, so now one of the things about all the muscle groups is they interconnect and intersect with each other a lot. You can definitely see that on the torso here that I've already drawn. But one thing to remember is that the next group of muscles that we're drawing, they start here, and then like they drag themselves across out from that origin area. You can see I did a little bit of something, a little draw over of that. So first one we're going to be paying attention to is this kind of big one. This one actually interconnects with your neck muscle right here. This one goes underneath your collarbone. Just connect it to that. But here, like, if you got a little sternum on your drawing sheet right now, and also you can be using the thing that I posted in chat to draw over and make notes, like how I'm making, because I've already done like all this previously on this thing where I color-coded muscle groups and stuff, read and reference, and that's posted in Discord chat for you right here. There's some problems with this guy. I made this, by the way, but there's some problems with this guy, like some weird little annoying proportional things with how I laid out the muscles, especially in the lower body, and some of the chicken strip stuff I did with the arms. But the torso will be the upper torso and most of the lower torso is good enough for us to work with for tonight. So all right, so now that you've kind of color-coded this area here, about to a little bit above, like the sternum's kind of arrow edge right here sort of extends down. Now I want you to do like the bottom of the pectoral. Just like that, real quick. Just like make a line like this. And keep in mind that, actually I should really draw in how the rib cage works. So like you got the rib cage right here that's got multiple ribs. I'm not going to draw in like every single rib accurately right now, but this is like the general kind of direction of the ribs from this angle, just to kind of help you out a bit. We got this. Then there's this kind of little bacon strip thing that happens right here with this sort of wedge that connects to what this is doing right here. This is creating space for the abdominals right there underneath your pectoral. Goes to about here on the edge of the rib cage, just about here. And goes upward, and then this strip of muscle actually goes upwards and actually fuses to your bone about here, I think. Then you get this kind of crisscross effect going on with this muscle fusing to about this part of your bone, right there. And the nipple should go about here. So then, from here, you want to add in, I think those are called the serratus muscles. But there's these go over on top of your ribs and go underneath, and actually like they continue on underneath your like underneath the muscles of your pectorals. But these are wrapping around the sides of your ribcage. These are like the kind of like when you see superheroes like flexing and stuff, and you see that kind of like that like multi-layered side of their torso. This is what you're seeing. You're seeing these muscles that are sort of wrapping over the rib cage. There should be about 3 of them visible on this side, but these continue up like all the way up to like here. Like they just wrap over every rib. That's something to keep in mind. That also means that more of them will be visible if in some cases, if the arm is raised. They'll also be flexing and more pronounced if the rib is raised. I mean, if the arm is raised. So then, from here, we now have roughly enough information to plot in about where the deltoid is. Deltoid is the most ridiculously complex muscle of the arm and the upper torso. It is a amorphous, irritating thing to draw. See, maybe I should pick like purple actually. Purple might work for this. But you get this kind of do like a bit of a curve like that, do a bit of a curve like this, and try to like cap off the joint This is actually a little bit high, come to think of it. The bone should be further up, I'd say. So I might want to fix that a bit. Actually, I think the collarbone's a little high. That's what's going on. No worries, I'll just fix it a little bit. This wraps over like the top of your shoulder, basically. So one last muscle group to be aware of from this side, unlike this side of the torso or this side of the body, is the trapezius, I believe it's called. The traps. This muscle group actually connects up to your arm, like way up there. Next to your arm bone, way up there. And it goes around back to your back. Like it's this thing here. This guy has like a bodybuilder build, so his kind of bulges. But like that thing like inserts in around like near the base of the spine, and connects up underneath your deltoid in the back. Alrighty, so next thing we're going to do will be the abs. So they actually start a little bit up here. So I think I have my torso proportions a little bit off, right? For the rib cage anyway. I think I should fix that before I move on. I think the bottom half of the rib cage is looking a little small. So I'll fix that real fast. I'm just trying to give people like an overview of this. This is also a review for me. But don't be too worried about absorbing everything here. You can rewatch the video later. But I just want to kind of give people like a big sort of feet first jump into torso anatomy. We'll be repeating this stuff throughout the next week. This stuff is not easy. And it's going to take multiple tries to really memorize. What we want to memorize is we want to memorize like a simplified understanding of the torso that's functional for the purposes of like animation and animation and more kind of cartooned illustration. Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna have to continue down to, let's see, I'm actually going to have to continue down to the pelvis now. So before I move on too much further, I'm going to draw that dish shape I was showing off. Pelvis. Get a little low, raise that a bit. If anyone's confused and lost, especially if you're in voice chat, please speak up if you have questions or any other input. So I'm actually getting the muscle groups here of the abs a little pretty off, but essentially like you've got this giant strip that's coming down here, It actually starts up around here. It's going underneath, again, underneath the torso. You got like this giant strip that's kind of going along here and inserting itself down into the pit of your crotch. You can really feel that. You can feel that sensation, that the connectedness that it has when you stretch your back and you stretch when you stretch backwards and you feel your belly stretch down to the pit of your crotch. But you've essentially got like one grouped muscle right there, one grouped muscle right there, one grouped muscle right there, one grouped muscle right there. And this area right here is about where you get like your six pack, basically. That area is mainly what usually looks like the six pack. This right here can also bulge out and get like kind of an 8-pack effect sometimes on some people. So next step, do a little bit of the bicep, or the side muscles here on the side of the lower torso. So get these muscles that connect down here, and so the pelvis, the way the pelvis is structured is you can basically think of it as a dish, but the dish shape is meant to simplify something that has like this kind of like topped, this kind of like curved top piece right here. That stuff that muscles insert into. And it kind of gets lower in the front and it comes forward. The pelvis is a really complex bone, but you can simplify how it works by thinking of it as like a dish. So I'm just going to include like a little bit of the muscles that we need, of the bones that we need there. And do the muscles for the side of the lower torso here. So you got like these that come out from the serratus. You got this kind of fleshy mass right here of muscle that inserts itself into the top of the pelvis right there. Like so. And then let's move over and do the bicep. So you start about here, I think, on the bone itself. And the way the bicep works, this is a really kind of tricky, here's one of the biceps right there, is it's a, here's the bicep right there, that yellow shape. Here's the tricep behind it. And here is a muscle group area that's kind of a gap in the underside of your elbow, basically. So the bicep muscle group kind of wraps itself around the edge of that. Keep that in mind. But the bicep kind of has like this sort of like chicken strippy look to it. It looks like a strip of delicious meat or something. Like if you were able to take the deltoid off, you'd see it look like something like this, basically. So that's curving actually around that little gap area that I was talking about. Here, gap area is something along, let's, gap area is something along like these lines. Kind of diamond-y, curvy shape. Now I'm going to add the tricep, which will be visible from here a little bit. Oh, another thing to note is the curve of this. Like, from how this is right here, like this would be like the middle of the bicep about, and it's kind of curved and facing towards us from here a little bit. Whereas like the tricep back here is a little bit more covered up from the angle that we're looking at here. But the tricep also curves around. Tricep muscle group also curves around and interconnects to the top of the joint here. But you do have this visible gap here, especially you can especially see it on bodybuilders and stuff that have more pronounced biceps and triceps. Like you've got this kind of division where like a bit of the deltoid kind of inserts itself in there. Let me adjust this a bit. Maybe be even more like this, actually. The deltoid is pretty crazy. We'll get back to it. But the deltoid can change shape ridiculously. Deltoid is actually 3 muscles and a bunch of other muscles underneath. Like 3 main muscles and a bunch of other muscles under it. Like if you're looking at the body in profile, like let me just draw like a shoulder schematic in here real quick. If you're looking at the body in profile here, then we're talking about like 3 muscle groups that make up the general shape of the deltoid here. This other one, okay, so this first one favors like the front side of the collarbone a bit. That's this kind of area here. The second one favors like mainly like this part right here, the shoulder, the like main top of the shoulder part, and then this one back here kind of favors the shoulder blade, like the shoulder blade bone that is coming up around the back. But the overall shape of the thing together, viewed from the side view, is something like here. Let's pick a color that stands out. Well, the overall shape of it is something along like these lines, viewed from this profile view, and when it's not like stretched up or down. You can further kind of think of it sort of like this. Let me just do a quick mock up. Remember this. Remember the neck muscles. Remember the handlebar. Handlebar of the collarbone, just about. So you got this torso here, pectorals here. Then you can kind of, to wrap your head around a little bit how the deltoid works, you can use a schematic kind of like this, where you get this kind of cube shape. Do that on both sides. Very important you wrap your head around how the neck muscle kind of inserts into the top plane of the shoulder when it's relaxed like that. And that thing is going to change shape like crazy. Let me do some quick sketches, for example, just how it can work. Like when the arm is raised, for example. Versus when it's inactive, we're looking at this from the rear, by the way. So, yeah, that's from the rear. It can potentially get really stretched out. And it'll change direction and face you in different ways all the time and stuff. This thing is really tough to wrap your head around, and we're gonna probably be taking extended practice on the deltoid alone in the future for these sessions. But yeah, this is your basic kind of upper body anatomy. There's more we could get into with the arm and stuff, and the forearm, and so on. We'd probably touch a little bit on some simplified forms of that, but I kind of want to move on to maybe doing some draw-over anatomy studies on some things together to get you guys going. And then we'll probably start applying some of this stuff to studio trigger type things. But don't worry, if you were overwhelmed by this stuff to begin with, we're now going to take a little bit to grab some photo reference. Or possibly some drawing reference. Actually, that might be a little bit better. See. Yeah, I think I know a good one for us to use. Actually, several good ones for us to use. So here's a few things that I pulled up that might be handy for us to use. This is a Michael Hampton turnaround thing showing off basically a lot of the forms I'm talking about. You can see he's got the collarbone in there. He uses distinct side planes and stuff. You can see where the muscle groups are of the insertions and so on. You can see like how he's handling like the deltoids there, for example. Like that was what I was trying to get across with how the deltoid works a little bit. So this one will be a good one to do practice from. As with this. Don't know about that. Ooh, yeah. If I can find stuff from the Anatomy for Sculptors book, that would actually be really good. Let's see, that's somebody practicing Michael Hampton. This one would be really good to do a job or study from. This is a turnaround based on Andrew Demas proportions. This one's a kind of comic book illustration turnaround, which would also be pretty good to do. I'm gonna maybe have us grab this one. So I'll post this one in the Discord chat. So this muscle man will help you kind of wrap your head around the stuff that we're covering tonight. So I want you all to get ready, and because we're going to be doing a draw along with that guy, or using that guy rather. I'm going to take a bathroom break very shortly, but I'm going to get my workspace set up. I don't remember this. Well, I am referencing some study materials. I'm studying along with you guys, by the way. This is anatomy review session for me, as well as you guys. But this guy I did, this handout that I gave you, is a study that I had done previously that I created for a class. So I've done like the mileage of trying to wrap my head around understanding this stuff before, and we're going to be going over more of it progressively throughout the next several weeks, actually. Fridays from now on will be our anatomy study focused day, anatomy and figure focused day. Wednesdays will be more gesture focused. I'm not sure what I'm going to do Saturday just yet, but Saturday might be leaning more towards like actual animation stuff, or trying to apply the stuff we're doing in figure drawing and stuff to animating. But there's going to be a Saturday class tomorrow, by the way. So this guy's really cut, and this will be really handy. I'm actually going to use Michael Hampton's thing as a quick cheat sheet for myself, because there's an amazing amount of information on that. I'll be yoinking this. I'll share this one in chat too. This is the second Michael Hampton thing. Here, get this thing. I'm going to have both of these up on a separate monitor for myself as I'm doing these, so I can keep this stuff in mind. But yeah, I'm going to leave this on screen for a little bit, and I'm going to hit the restroom. I'll be right back, and then we'll get started. So what I'm going to have us do for the turnaround here is I'm going to have us identify the muscle groups that we just went over and work our way through them piece by piece to kind of draw over them and draw through them. And then from there, after we get done with this, we will move on to doing some studio trigger drawings. We will be studying how they simplify anatomy, and we will be inserting our own anatomy onto them. Like, let me show you an example of kind of what we're going to be aiming to do. We're going to basically be doing stuff like this using studio trigger drawings. Not as well, probably not as well executed as the amazing artist that did these for Disney on Tarzan. But this is what we kind of want to like try to do, basically. Breaking down these really kind of simplified and anatomical, simplified anatomy characters into you want to kind of like layer an understanding of anatomy onto them a bit. And the idea behind doing this is that you want to kind of like ingrain a intuitive knowledge of anatomy in what you're drawing in your own work over the course of like studying this stuff, because like anatomy is ridiculously complex. But like artists like the great animators at Studio Trigger, like Yo-Yo Shinari, who were the main guy who we're going to be practicing from tonight, they have their own ways of simplifying things and like emphasizing and exaggerating things. Like I've noticed like really pronounced shoulder blades and stuff like that, and we'll be identifying those on the figures that we get to tonight. I'm starting right here. I'm actually like starting for the collarbone. I just kind of feel like starting with that. But check it out. You can see those really kind of pronounced neck muscles right there. You can see the 3 muscle groups of the deltoid there. It's the deltoid right there. I believe this last one right here is kind of a bulge that's connecting up to the back. It's more like this, actually. Here, before I get too far into really complex anatomy, I'm going to do a quick simplified draw over some of the basic shapes I see here, like the side plane of the head, for example. Side plane and front plane of the head. I'll just draw like some quick eye sockets, kind of on the side of the nose and whatever. And then I got this kind of like ellipse at an angle right here that I'm going to kind of be using for like about where I think the top of the rib cage is a bit. And I'm sort of following like the pathway of the serratus muscles right here. You sort of kind of guesstimate. I think that the serratus is going to be bulging a little bit off the ribs. So I'll get about here-ish. And generally speaking, like the bottom of the rib cage is about where your elbow is. So probably about there. And then you can actually see right here. I think the serratus actually goes down a little bit more than the sternum goes a little bit more down here. Maybe about, yeah, about there-ish. Kind of using the front of the head as the measuring device here. Definitely about there, I want to say. And for clarity's sake, I'm going to erase this and like see if I can do something that's a little bit more apparent as the kind of bicycle handle shape. this. All right. Then you can actually kind of see the curve of where the bottom of the rib cage is open, about like this. Draw an ellipse through there. Another ellipse through here, maybe. Let's get I'm going to draw through the figure about where I think the spine is. It's going to insert the top of the neck, curve around the back, about here. Insert into the top of the torso dish, about here. Torso dish is angled towards us a bit, of course. Or the pelvis dish, going down to about the pit of the crotch-ish. Very simplified form to use. Now here's a real quick trick. Something that'll help you wrap your head around how the torso works. Use the points at the top of the shoulders right here, where the muscle and the bone inserts, and then go across the body down to the pit of the crotch. Now, this is a Riley method measuring device. That'll kind of help you wrap your head around how the torso and the body works. You can do the same thing with, you take the sides of the neck here, just about, and you do something similar for like figuring out the fleshy parts of the hips as they insert into the top of the pelvis a little bit. That is a Riley method rhythm that lets you kind of play off the figure a bit. There's actually more to it that like connects in through the back and so on, but we're not going to get too much into that. All right, so I'm going to throw in the center line here while I'm at it, down the front of the torso. We're getting kind of complicated here with these kind of underpinning drawings, so I'm going to lower the opacity a bit. And let's see. I'm going to color code maybe the muscles that I'm going to be making here. So remember that first neck muscle. It starts up around the base of the ear here. It connects down about here. Then you got the one that kind of branches out there a bit. And if you need some reference, you can check out the Michael Hampton drawings that I posted in chat. That, and there's, what was the other one? The other one was in here somewhere. Yeah, I'll post this one in chat too. If you're feeling lost, don't worry, just do your best. I'm actually, this is going to be kind of really counterintuitive because this is like an anatomy review for me. So weirdly enough, like we're going to be starting out really complex with this stuff, and then we're going to be kind of, in the next several days, we're going to be scaling, and also the course of this class, when we get, especially when we get to the studio trigger stuff, we're going to be scaling back in complexity to focus on individual areas and stuff. But I think it'd be a good idea. I think it's a good idea to just start straight away like this, to give people an idea of like just how much you're dealing with this stuff. If anything, like take one or two pieces of this away today to try out on your own, and try doing drawovers, sort of mimicking what I'm doing, but on your own terms, if you can find your own anatomy reference to do drawover studies of. I'm going to do a quick sort of arm bone in there, about where I think the arm bone is. I think the shoulder blade is somewhere back there. Now, I'm going to connect top of the pectoralis to my arm bone, right through here. And to my collarbone. It's about here. It's a bit further up. And then we have the bottom of the pecs, going about here, with a rather generous bottom strip of the pec right there for the abs down below. Then we have the serratus right here. Do those in blue. Those, of course, are wrapping over the rib cage underneath there. But like these little kind of leeches or tapeworm, flatworms, or something that are sort of wrapping over the side of the torso. I want to think about them that way. Then we have the deltoid right here. We have this part of the deltoid, which you can actually see in the drawing that we're doing, the drawing reference draw over from. The next part of the deltoid about here. And you can actually see right here, like the little gap that's in between the bicep and the tricep. So here's the tricep back here. We'll go more into arm anatomy stuff, but I'm just kind of using like placeholder muscles for now for that. The bicep, of course, inserts underneath the deltoid up there. We have the trapezius that's coming around in the back there. It's going to be going up through there and then inserting into the arm somewhere up here. And to interconnect with what our deltoid is doing right here. Got the neck muscles that are coming off right there. I'm gonna make those black actually. Just using color coding to kind of differentiate the muscle groups as I'm drawing them a little bit. Remember that little gap right there. And this is another kind of gap here. This is actually going to be a gap right here. Like those little gap areas you can actually feel on your body when you move your muscles around, and they are gap areas between the bone and the muscle. And remember, like, these muscles are actually originating off of the bone there. It's being basically stretched out to connect with your arm bone. Like this under piece right here, underneath the pectorals, is actually connecting like around here in this kind of crisscross sort of thing going on. We got the side of the torso there. Here's the Adam's apple. It's not really muscle, but it's part of the stuff that's going on here. Use blue for the abs. Sorry. The abs actually start where the rib cage still is. And like I said, sometimes that is visible on people. On this dude, it's less pronounced, and it's more about this being the traditional six-pack area. But we're going to be adding that in, because if you stripped off his flesh, you'd be able to see the muscle there. So remember, like, this is a big shape that's connecting it. This entire strip right here actually connects up to the base of your neck right here. So if you stretch your neck, you stretch your head up, you'll be able to feel your abs and your chest, and like the muscles that are going down underneath your chest stretching a bit. Keep that in mind when you're making these. Like, you can think about that big simplified shape right here. Doing a quick like sketchy draw over with it. I'm going to kind of use like these sort of curved shapes and stuff to sort of help me kind of roughly eke out where the muscles are kind of curving off each other. But if you look on like real people, you'll often notice that their abs are kind of really weird and asymmetrical and uneven and strange and stuff. That's always going to be different on like different people. But superhero abs tend to be really very perfectly symmetrical. Gotta erase some of that. We do have more of the belly there, so I'm gonna make sure I include some more of that. This is like one big shape that's coming down to the pit of the crotch, underneath the groin. Like I said, it's actually one big strip that's going up all the way up to the base of your neck, underneath all your other muscles. All right, so let's do because we did the Riley method rhythm, we kind of have our work cut out for us now on handling the hips here. So I'm kind of using like about where the top of the pelvis is. That was like the kind of resting and insertion point there. And of course, this is continuing out from the serratus. I believe there might be one more here. I could be wrong though. But in any case, like the serratus muscles come down back here. Or no, the serratus muscles with the hip muscles down to around here. And you can see on this guy, like, here's the serratus right here doing its thing, and then you got this part of the muscle group that's part of the hips over here. basically like that. That's pretty good, and we haven't really gotten into the buttocks because it's more about like the upper torso and stuff. When we get more into legs and things, we'll be getting more into how the buttocks works and so on. Like it's kind of deserving of its own thing too. But like there's stuff about how like the muscles on the back insert at the base of the spine. We've also been mainly emphasizing the front of the torso today. In future classes, I will emphasize the back of the torso. But we're going to move on a little bit pretty soon into getting some practice using studio trigger drawings and trying to look for this stuff in like the simple sketches or the animation drawings that we're going to be trying to learn stuff from. That should be a fun, interesting challenge. Yeah. Remember, if you get lost in these big, complex shapes, just remember, like, you can always kind of find your way again by using kind of box forms, sort of like this. Remember what I told you about spine being basically three components, just three simplified components, which is that, the neck, rib cage area, and the pelvis area. Remember, it's a C curve, an S curve, and a C curve. And this one is a little bit less flexible. Like the only part that really has any kind of flexibility, any flexibility to it in a human figure is like this area right here. The tailbone area, the tailbone pelvis area of the spine, mostly just an anchor point for the muscles and the buttocks. When we do get more into the back, like there's some other things I want to note too. Like there's this kind of gap right here where you can like feel bits of the spine, especially on muscular people. And there's a bunch of really kind of weird stuff going on here with like how this overlaps on like the muscles back here, and then like this overlaps on some other muscles back under here and stuff. Like it gets really, really complicated. This inserts down into here and stuff. It gets really complicated, and it's we're going to save that for a future session. But for this session tonight, we've got about another hour left, I think, and we will spend that practicing studio trigger drawings. We will be loosening up a little bit, but we'll also be really trying to slow down, pay attention to what's happening in them, and like how we can like wrap our heads around like how they're working anatomically a little bit. Let's just get rid of this stuff on screen, and then we'll yoink together some studio trigger stuff. So here's some of the stuff I was doing before class. There's a lot of good stuff on these pages. There's some other pages I think I want to yoink also, which are more torso anatomy specific. But I'm going to give you guys a little time to kind of rest and recharge and get some water or whatever. But like the kind of stuff that I'm looking at having us do will be stuff like this, for example. We kind of like do a draw over basically of these, trying to look for like the egg shape of the rib cage, for example, the dish of the pelvis, We look for those spinal areas, stuff in here. And these don't have to be, the thing about these, like, you're going to want to slow down to do these, but you just want to keep, like, some of the stuff in mind and trying to look for bits and pieces of, like, what I was talking about. Like, if you notice, look at this. That's some of that stuff I was talking about is present here. Like, this is somebody who understands enough of anatomy to have this kind of stuff be intuitive. Like, how the pectoralis connects with the arm bone underneath there. There's other stuff too, like you can see like a little bit of you see like how the deltoids work here, for example, when they're raised up. There's like kind of a vague implication of the insertion point of the neck muscle on the top of the deltoid. Let's see, where's some other opportunities? There's like a little bit, there's like, even in ones like this where it's like there's not really too much apparent anatomical detail, you can take this kind of rough, loose sketch and sort of infer some anatomy structure into it. Kind of think stuff out. Like you can, because like the idea of it is there. This is somebody who has a really studious, intuitive understanding of anatomy. So there's enough for you to trust in these drawings that you can pull more information out of them for your practice. Keeping in mind the insertion of that muscle right there. Keeping in mind this little gap right here. You can do a little neck muscle study right there. Insert the neck muscle into the top of the deltoid, so on. You can kind of sort of guesstimate about where the tops of the hips are right here. Like, you don't have to be scared of this stuff. Like, and if you need a cheat sheet, you can look at the Michael Hampton thing or my anatomy study that I did for anatomy drawing class. You can look at 3D models of anatomy reference if you need to. But yeah, I'm going to give people kind of a little bit of a chance to sort of get in gear. But you should be putting together a page, lowered opacity stuff of preferably studio trigger drawings, kind of like these. Let me see here if I can actually share some of these. Yeah, I'll try sharing these in chat, the ones that are available on the web. But do a Google image search for Yo-Yo Shinari sketches, and there should be several pages of usable stuff for you to dig through. That's a piece of fan art. That's not him. But look for stuff by him. Like, here's a good page in here. Even if it's like low resolution, it's still usable. Like, you could zoom this in and still do your studies on it. Here's a really good page, actually. I'll probably yank this. Yeah, there's this stuff, and then like you can look for studio trigger animation. Or let's see, studio trigger Ginga. You look for the rough animation drawings, basically, to do studies on. If you can find ones that are of suitable resolution, like this would be pretty good. Although you can't really see the anatomy on her, you can probably draw under her clothes for anatomy study and figure out where like the collarbone is and other things. But I want you to dig through this kind of stuff, like this and like Yo-Yo Shinari sketches, to try to look for meaty fodder to start breaking down like how the torso anatomy works. Here's a good page right there. Is this construction method of figure drawing? Yeah, kind of. Well, we're mainly doing this to kind of like wrap our heads around like how anatomy works. Like you're not necessarily going to be drawing this way, but like if you're like you want to be like you want to work towards being able to draw like someone like Yo-Yo Shinari, if you're especially if you're an animator, where he has like an intuitive understanding of anatomy from like lots of practice. So what we're doing is we're kind of slowing down and paying attention to what his underlying knowledge is, and like spending more time to kind of meditate on what he is inferring with what he's drawing. In my case, I'm sneaking in little bits and pieces of study around the edges of stuff like hands and arms and other things, as well as the torso. Yeah, basically just redlining his work and trying to understand how he understands figures a bit, and also like exercise our own understanding of it. Like you shouldn't be tracing here. You should be trying to understand like why he's making the decisions that he makes, why things look the way they do, like, even in these rough sketches. Try to define the anatomy a little bit better than what you're seeing too, based on like what I've shown you tonight. But this is tricky right here. We're going to be getting more into what happens to the shoulders and the arms and stuff when the arms raise up. I need a refresher on that, actually. But yeah, these classes are also like anatomy studies for me too. So shoulder blade is somewhere back there. We've got this gap here, collarbone, sternum. Insertion of the pectoralis insertion is like right here. Tricep, bicep. I mean, the idea with doing anatomy studies like these is you want it to start to become intuitive over time, just from doing a lot of it, so that it like starts to become second nature. So we're going to be doing a lot more stuff like this, especially over the next week. Get that neck muscle in there. And I emphasize that shoulder blade back there a bit. It's kind of like Little Witch Academia-ish designs. This character is, their expression right now is that they're kind of puffing up their chest a bit. So their lungs have kind of expanded their chest cavity a little bit. Kind of neat. got these insertion points here for the pelvis connecting with legs. Got the tops of the shoulders about here. I'm going to have to draw through the head, sort of figure out where that is. And check it out. Here's the Riley method rhythm going under the pit of the crotch, like so. There's the Riley method rhythm again, going down sides of the hips. There. The thing about like animation drawing, especially like stuff like this, like it's not necessarily perfect anatomy, but there's enough of an understanding there for how the stuff works that feels right. That's what we should ultimately be trying to integrate into our animation work. Like it's not quite like reality, but it's like our interpretation of the mechanics of it. That's the idea. Like we kind of want to wrap our heads around how these muscles insert to each other and how they work in unison and physically. Characters are doing certain actions and stuff. And if you start developing an intuitive understanding of muscle groups and so on, you can use them intuitively for like your acting and how the attitude of characters and stuff. Like you can see some pretty good examples of this here with like especially like this character here. This very, very expressive arm. Right there, it's very anatomical, angular arm. Very bony. Sort of skinny fingers. Generally very feminine shapes, the head and the torso. You can kind of get a sense of the attitude of the character and stuff, and how they're posed, and how like the way that the anatomy is exaggerated, reinforcing that. Even stuff like this, for like you can kind of feel this pull and the stretch and the weight between these two characters pulling each other, or one character either trying to save each other, or the characters are being pulled apart. I want people to using the headway of the anatomy stuff and the reference I provided. Just dig into this. Like start constructing a sternum. Sort of guesstimate about where that kind of handlebar shape is for the collarbone. Guesstimate about how the pectoralis is inserting into the arm, how the deltoid is working there. You can also switch to different colors if you're drawing over the same thing a bunch. So I just want to move from one study to the next on this. I'm not like going to be terribly meticulous about it. I want to slow down and pay attention, but I'm not going to be meticulous. I want the flexibility of playing with these shapes, because they're going to be changing all the time, especially when stuff is animating. Just trying to tap in a little bit to kind of a better understanding of how to use anatomy in my animated characters and stuff. Get more of a range of my ability to invent poses or design poses around reference. Very wide hips going on there. I think the pelvis would actually be about here, but then like these hips are kind of really extended out. Because of the way the bone is connected. It's really very exaggerated. So we will be getting into legs and lower torso stuff really in depth in the future too. Just like this. But I want to make these kind of like thoughtful anatomy studies a regular thing. We'll be doing at least once. We'll be doing this at least once a week on Fridays. But I want to kind of sprinkle bits and pieces of anatomy, anatomy study stuff like this throughout the week. Really nice line of action going on here. To the hips. They're back here. You can really feel the stretch of the muscles in the flesh on some of these. This guy had serratus muscles that were visible. There'd probably be something somewhere around there. From what I can tell, it looks like that this character is possibly reaching towards the camera, or the arm is bending at the elbow. It's a little bit hard to tell. I'm just going to kind of guesstimate about where I think the shoulder muscle is. So these are some good ones right here. Just so you can see the bony part of the hip there. That gives us a little bit more of a headway to kind of plot out where the cylinder of the pelvic dish is. You can see where the collarbone is, and inserting right here to the top of the deltoid. A little bit of the shoulder blade back there. See? Inserting right there. This character, neck muscles are doing something like this, I think. A quick side plane of the head there. Really simple cartoon head, so I'm not going to dwell on it too much. So skills like these you actually also need for if you're doing animation tie downs or cleanup. That's the other reason I want people doing this. Because you would take like drawings like these and then turn them into on-model characters. These are actually more thought out than a lot of rough animation is, actually. Anatomically, that is. Where do you find these pictures? Google image search for Yo-Yo Shinari sketches. You should find a good variety of them to pick from. The other one is Studio Trigger Genga. Genga being rough animation. Just look for good animation stills to use that would give you enough to work with to kind of figure out where the anatomy is. Like even clothed characters, if you know you're gonna, like, you can kind of feel out where the deltoid is and where the collarbone is and stuff. Then you can draw through the clothes. You can also look for like finished stills of animation. Yeah, look for stuff that's going to give you good views of, especially the front of the torso. And yeah, I am focused on studio trigger stuff right now, but you don't have to limit it to studio trigger. If you have something else that you think would work better for you right now to study anatomy from, you're welcome to use it. I am focused on studio trigger and because I'm really trying to pick up on Yo-Yo Shinari's approach to anatomy and drawing and absorb it into my own way of thinking a little bit more. Yeah, let's do a little bit more of this. Got the neck muscles there, a little bit of the Adam's apple, somewhere in there probably. Neck muscles here that are inserting into the top of the deltoid. Got this, it's like the top of the pelvis, just about here. A little bit of the serratus muscles would be about here. All right, let's see. What's another good one? Good. Yeah, that's a good one right there. Really showing off. Like, there's a simplified. Like, these are sketches, mind you. So like, they're not going to be like. Not going to be as thought out where stuff is placed. So you can kind of infer things and try to kind of design around them. Like, let's see if we can split up how that deltoid is a little bit. Let's look at our cheat sheet real fast. Sternum in here, a bit of the rib cage right there. Emphasizing a bit of the shoulder blades back there that's connecting up with. That's got a little bit visually confused there. Try that again, actually. I think I was a little bit on the right track, but let's try it again. Sternum about there, the pectoralis inserting into the arm about there. Bottom of the chin so I can differentiate that a bit more. A bit more of the shoulder, of the collarbone there. I think that's meant to be the shoulder blade back there. Of course, the pelvis down here. He's tilting his torso forward, so the pelvis is going to be a little bit more level back in there. this. Coming up around the back. A lot of guesstimating. It's okay for doing these. So I want people to kind of struggle with this stuff. And look, here's some much better defined anatomy, and that's a little bit straighter on and easier to tell what's going on. But I want people to kind of struggle with figuring out where to insert stuff, or where to infer and build stuff in. And use your cheat sheets if you get lost, too. Look at that gap here, gap over there. Sternum down here.
I just popped up a link. What is?
What's that? Someone asked a question?
Yeah, I was asking what does this develop? Specifically, is this more construction based or more anatomy based?
I'm sorry, you're really breaking up. Can you ask in text chat? Either in Discord or in Twitch. Is it 7:50? Cool, we got about 40 minutes left here. I want people to kind of take their time, pay attention, and do their best. Like, this is not a race. And this is, for a lot of people, this might be your first time trying this. So just try dipping your toes in it a bit. It might help to pick stuff that has like look for the newer people here, especially look for stuff that has like really evident collarbones, and try practicing that kind of bicycle handlebar shape on it. But any other opportunity you can have to kind of play with how the torso anatomy works that I showed off tonight, go for it. We will be doing more sessions like these the coming weeks, so you'll have plenty of time to refine your approach on this and other parts of anatomy. Does this focus on construction or anatomy? I'd say a little. I would say a little bit more on anatomy, but there is construction. Like when when you're using construction, that you're talking about using simplified shapes, like these kind of scaffolding bits and stuff. When you're using anatomy, you're talking more about like paying attention to how muscles are inserted into things and stuff. But you kind of need like a little bit of a scaffold to start with, and like a good one to start with, for example, is the collarbone, or like the egg shape of the rib cage, like the pelvis dish. Like starting with something like that, and then sort of like playing with the anatomy knowledge, like what I'm doing right now, for example. Because like it's like as far as construction goes, like it's kind of kind of like taking those simple shapes that you've made and then making like these complex insertions and stuff and transforming them into like more complex like bones and muscles and stuff. But you can like simplify it even further. Like there's like super simplified, like super mechanical versions of like how all these things work. And we'll practice some of those in the future. A lot of great ones are from George Bridgman. We'll be getting more into him in the future too. I'm almost tempted to kind of do a round 2 tomorrow of this for tomorrow's class. There will be another class at 5:30 tomorrow. Thinking we might do a round 2 of torso practice and try to go a little bit more in depth, but also like give people a little bit more to work with as far as like simplifying it. This is not easy stuff. Fortunately, the advantage of practicing over like an artist like Yo-Yo Shinari, for example, is you have someone who kind of takes the wheel for you to an extent. You have something to kind of play off of and absorb from. What I want to work towards after doing a lot of like studies like these is like when I start feeling more comfortable about it, I can potentially create my own gestural figures kind of like these that have bits and pieces of the anatomy kind of built into them. Like when I have a better understanding of hips, you'll see stuff like what he does show up more in my work when I'm just like sketching freehand. And then like because I've like taken the time to really slow down and think about like how he does stuff or how I can use rough sketches like those to infer more anatomy into them. That makes like the rough sketches that I create more usable to develop into more finished pieces and stuff. So I'm gonna be like as I start to get used to doing this, I'm gonna be bouncing between doing my own invented poses that kind of use some of the same information and oh look at that, like he actually did some anatomy like some interior anatomy drawing right here. But it looks like he kind of exaggerates the placement of the underside of rib cage, or the gap on the underside of the rib cage. There is a lot of simplification that goes on with like these very anime figures and stuff, but it is still based on anatomy, like these. This character looks like he's ready to be put in this. This character's body shape looks like he's ready to be put inside of an EVA suit. Yeah, here's that Riley method rhythm right there. We can do the tops of the shoulders for one right here. A bit of the crotch. So like it isn't necessary to draw like out when you're like doing characters like these, it isn't necessary to draw out like every anatomical detail, but like that you know what to do when you need to make it evident that it's there is really invaluable because then you can imply more with drawing less. Speaking of which, here's a page where he did like some quick anatomy sketches. This is not like the best cut skeleton or anything like that, but like the basic kind of rough idea of it. You could probably draw, like you could probably do a study like this where you draw over it and you draw a better version of the skeleton that he did. Where you really work out like the handlebar shapes and so on. But like, look at this, like he's got like these neck insertions and the neck gap here. You know, the collarbone on this character with like really well developed neck muscles. Got like the handlebar going on there, the collarbone. Egg shape the rib cage. It's got the trapezius coming up, really bulging trapezius back there. And you can see like it's got like little indications here of like those same insertions I was talking about earlier. Like that one coming off here that's actually connecting to the bone of the arm inside here. Going like in here through there. Like so. And this one that's coming up around here and connecting up there. Just about. Back neck muscle that's coming down around and curving around to the top of the shoulder there. You can see that even more on this super buff dip guy right here. Big old gap right there for the top of the shoulder. This guy looks like, hard for me to say, but it kind of looks like there's going to be like a gap right here. Yeah, like that. There it is on the other side there. Could be even smaller, actually. And then you can kind of see where he did a little bit of an indication of the neck muscles a bit. Actually, I think that this is, let me see here. Okay, so yeah, he's got, let's see here, like that. That's that part of the neck muscle, and then I think this here-ish, I think. Top of the sternum, collarbone. Let's do a quick skull here. Adam's apple in there. So I wanted, one thing I was kind of hoping to do some tonight though would have been like the drawovers of photographs. So I'm hoping we'll be able to get to some of that tomorrow, because that one's going to be really helpful. But doing this to start with on like someone like Yo-Yo Shinari is a good idea. Sure, as long as you start with like, as long as you have like a cheat sheet to work from and kind of know what muscle groups you're going to be trying to, muscle and bone groups you're going to be trying to infer into his drawings. That should give you some headway to start. Here, look at that. You can see the tops of his pelvis right there, around the hips. That's going to give us a little bit of a headway for the top of that pelvic dish. And his rib cage, you can, if you want to find it, figure out where the rib cage is, because the rib cage is going to be like smaller than like a really well-developed trapezius muscles. So if you want to kind of plot out where the trapezius is, you can usually look to the serratus muscles if they're visible on a character or figure. Sort of use that to sort of guesstimate about where the rib cage is. Something like that, I would say. Quite sure what's going on with this area down here. I think it's like a might have been off about the placement of the hips. The serratus study there. A little bit of a study of six-pack. Belly. How's everyone doing? Everyone who's still in here, or who's still inactive in voice, hopefully. We didn't get a lot of banter this session, sadly. Yeah, there's only like 4 other people in voice right now. To be expected. I mean, like Soulcore's class kind of went on for a while today, so there's only so many people that have enough energy for this. We had a good head start today. I'm going to be making sure that we follow up on this more than likely tomorrow. I may try to re-strategize a little bit about what I do Fridays, because like what I do right after Soulcore's class, like a lot of people are going to be kind of exhausted after being through her class for the whole time. But I do want to run classes on that day. I think doing anatomy studies is fantastic, and I want to see how we can keep that going in conjunction with hers, maybe. But I want to look at other things that might play off what she does in her class a little better. So you got this guy right here who's got kind of like a concave top of his chest, I sort of feel like. Kind of weird insertions. His arms. They still work the same way any other arm insertions do. Cage about here, I think. So got a little plump belly fat covering up his abs. His hips are about here. Time is it? It is 8. 8. We've got about 22 more minutes left. Okay, Google, set timer for 22 minutes.
Okay, 22 minutes. And that's starting now. Side note, if you need an alarm in this room in the morning, I can do that too. Just say, set an
Okay,
alarm for
Google, shut
7
up.
a.m.
Thank you.
Okay, it's canceled.
Okay, Google, set timer for 21 minutes.
21 minutes. And we're starting now.
Jesus Christ. All right, so if you got anything to post in chat, I'd love to see love to see what you got. If you got anything to post in Discord, please do that now. I can do maybe a quick critique before we end tonight. There we go. Some very angular, stylized anatomy going on here, but yeah, it's still all based on. There's the handlebar, there's the insertions going on here. Like, this is showing off a little bit of what you can do when you have more of an intuitive understanding of anatomy and you try stylizing, stylizing how anatomy works. But it's still based all on the same thing, so those little shadows there are that's that gap that happens in that part. The pectoralis and between the pectoralis, the deltoid, and the collarbone. So on, there's like going to be shadow inherently right there where that little gap is happening. Here's the deltoid tilting its top towards us, so we see more of the top of it. And the insertions right here going into the arm from the pectoralis and from the deltoid into the bicep, tricep right there. Maybe I can make Friday Animal Drawing Day. Wednesday could probably be a more anatomy figure oriented session like this, maybe. And then Saturday could maybe be gesture drawing. I don't know. We'll see. So I want to get it back up so I have like 4 class days a week again. But I'll see. I want to figure out something that's going to complement what Silpora does in her class, so it becomes like a logical extension of what she's doing there. Sadly, I wasn't able to attend today. I've only been able to attend like one of her classes, so I keep having errands pop up, or I don't have enough energy for doing her class or whatever. In this case, I had to do some errands today. I'm getting a lot out of doing this tonight. I hope that you guys are getting something out of this too, even if you're new. I realize that a lot of the information I went over tonight can probably be a little bit overwhelming, but stick with it. I mean, like, as long as I got you initially exposed to it, we'll be able to chip away at it bit by bit more and more. Like if like I said, if there's anything that sinks in tonight, make it be that stuff about how the collarbone works. Let's see if I can find a good example in here somewhere. Like keep an eye out for that collarbone. Remember that it works like a bicycle handlebar. Goes upwards and backwards in space. Here we go. Even those studies a shot, huh? Yeah, I would say, like I said, I mean, there's some stuff there's some good stuff that you're trying to put in there. Like I said, pay really close attention to that collarbone area and like how that inserts and stuff. And use your cheat sheets. Try to find like a lot of reference of like how the collarbone works from like Google image searches of anatomy. Here's one right. Here's a drawing right here that would be a good one to do of collarbone. Here, let me snag that real fast. Yeah, what am I doing? I don't need to do that. I need to do this. There. Easy peasy. That was actually already pretty low opacity to begin with. So there's our buddy, the collarbone right there. Going back up around on the other side to the other shoulder back there. There's our buddy, the deltoid. Doing its thing where it favors connecting to this part of the collarbone. It connects more to the top of the shoulder here, and then connects to the fused part of the back there. All this stuff is so tricky. This is like really difficult stuff to wrap your head around. It's going to take some time for all of us, myself included, to practice this and get it right. If this stuff was easy, anyone could do it. So don't feel like you're shit if you're not quite getting it yet. It's going to take time. Just stick with it and keep practicing this. We'll be breaking down pieces of anatomy and getting more and more practice at it. Stuff will basically start to like click bit by bit the more of this that you do. And it's going to be so worth it. Let's see if there's anything I can add to your quick. So, I definitely try to let like more of what Yo-Yo Shinari is actually doing with pushing the figure drive more of what you're doing if you can. But that said, here's some stuff you can try to wrap your head around a little bit more. Like, what's going on with the collarbone there? I think your head's a little bigger, something like that. Get the neck muscles going up behind the head there. The gap there. Let's just plot out a little bit of the top plane of the deltoid right there. Presumably her bicep is facing this way, coming towards us. Definitely try to be less timid about it and try to let Yo-Yo Shinari's exaggeration drive things when you're doing these studies. Pretend you're like a cleanup animator who's trying to develop the anatomy of the existing animation or rough animation drawings that Yo-Yo Shinari has handed off to you, basically. There's some crazy stuff that's going to be going on with the underside of the arm there that we're going to get into in future sessions. By the way, there's a really weird muscle that is visible, especially on bodybuilders, when you raise your arm up, that a lot of people don't really know about too much. It's there though, and you can actually see it in a lot of, especially like a really well drawn like comic book illustration, both Western and Eastern. Here. You kind of do have to guesstimate because like these are cartoon character drawings, so like the anatomy is going to kind of bend to the thrust of the gesture a bit. Just have to keep that in mind. And you kind of want that, so like, do a mix of like the stuff that's more dynamic and the stuff that's a little bit more static, so you can kind of wrap your head around how this stuff works a little bit. But yeah, like I said, try to favor the stuff where there's not clothes on them for the time being. So you can infer a little bit more of the anatomy a little bit easier. Or even find drawings like these where the anatomy is actually spelled out for you a little bit, say like that. Little gap in the deltoid there for the top. And here's the neck muscle back there. There's the front neck muscle right there, going back down into like where the sternum or the collarbone, top of the collarbone is. Get this, it's connecting back over there to the shoulder blade that's sticking out here. Deltoid. There. Neck muscle back there. Pectoralis going up here, insertion going here. Don't worry, if you stick with me in these classes and if you do stuff outside of them to keep practicing this stuff till you're blue in the face, it'll start becoming intuitive. Got about 6 more minutes, I would say. You're doing tracing paper jobbers, I see. That's, yeah. Going for simplifications. That's a good strat. Oh yeah, I'm going to give you a little preview of some of what we're going to be getting into with the back muscles here. Got this little kind of diamond star shape about here, I think. This neck muscle that inserts into the top of the deltoid. There. That goes about there, and then there's like, this is where it starts getting really weird. So you got the deltoid here, right? With me so far? Well, here's where it's about to get strange. So that goes in there, right? Now, in addition to that, there is another muscle that is under here. About, I think, yeah, about here. Then there's another muscle that's about here. And then there's this kind of like this gap here, just about. And there's this giant muscle that wraps over the figure. That's the trapezius back there. That's over the back like that. Giant tarp over the back that goes all the way down to the buttocks, about just about somewhere there. It has a gap like about here, I believe. So we'll put that gap there. Then on top of that, there is this giant muscle here. Does some really weird shit where it sort of connects like this over the top of that kind of tarp-like muscle. Part of it covers like some of the shoulder blades of it. Yeah, shoulder blades about here. It consumes most of the back and connects all the way up to the neck muscle, the whole neck muscle, top of the shoulder muscle thing there. What's going on? On top of that, there is also a bunch of like gaps here where you can kind of like have like bits of the spine, but we have like bits of the spine poking out. There's some of that also happening down here. Yeah, this thing right here, I'm going to exaggerate a little bit, but it connects out all the way over there. But this whole thing right here, I'm going to shade it in here. This thing is covering the top of that back insertion muscle. And then, of course, over here on this other side, you have the same shit that's happening on the other side with those multi-layered muscles that are underneath the deltoid and on the back. Deltoid back over here, bicep, etc., going down that way and foreshortening. It's not the best drawing here, but this is like a quick mock-up example. Like the kind of weird shit we're going to be getting into when we start getting more into back anatomy next week, or maybe tomorrow. Yeah, we're pretty close to being done. But yeah, I'm thinking we should do a sequel class to this tomorrow. We might get a little bit more dynamic with it than we did today, but like we'll probably do more stuff that actually has like animation drawovers maybe. But or go over stuff of how to actually make the torso move around and change its state. Like I probably might want to go more into like what happens when you change arm positions and what happens to the deltoid there and so on. But we're okay, Google, stop. But I'm thinking we should probably continue a bit of what we did today.
Sorry, I don't
Okay,
understand.
Google, stop. But yeah, that's pretty much it for tonight. So I would be interested in hearing from you guys what bits and pieces you got to take away from tonight that you're going to be focusing on practicing. I'd say try to pick like 1, 2, or 3 things that you're really going to try to ingrain and memorize from tonight. Over the weekend or in prep for tomorrow. Before I go, I'd like to see whatever you have that you could post in chat for me. I'll take a peek at that. But I also want to hear from you guys what you thought of tonight's class. And I'd also like to, like if there's anything you're struggling with, if you think I need to break things down a little bit more for you, I'm definitely going to be breaking things down a little bit better tomorrow. So I'll be, because like tonight I was kind of coming in dry to doing anatomy stuff, and I really needed to brush up on it a bit. So I'll be able to give people some more simplified shapes to play with tomorrow, but to start with. But we're going to be continuing the anatomy draw-over practice and also some freehand stuff tomorrow. Further, kind of trying to memorize the anatomy of the torso, or get intuitive the anatomy of the torso. All right. I guess everyone's kind of winding down. We've only got 20 viewers right now, so I'll give it about like another couple minutes. Yeah, for those, I would say like you need more, definitely need more line confidence when you're doing studies. I mean, you're kind of, I see bits and pieces that you're using like the face mask thing. Even on even, and it looks like on this you have a better sense of how the 3-dimensionality works on it because you're practicing it. But it seems to be a lot of shaky lines, and you want to be a little bit more bold and deliberate with how you're constructing and building off this stuff, if you can. That's what I'm trying to aim for with my studies. I'm of course wrestling with stuff that I need to practice, so I still struggle. But I want to try to see if I can get people to struggle in the right direction along with me as well. Yeah, I mean, like you're paying attention to the right kind of information. I would say that try to be, like I said, try to be a little bit more deliberate in how you're partitioning out the different muscle groups and bones and stuff that I showed. Try to think about how they work as shapes. Because when Yo-Yo Shinari draws, he draws with very kind of, even when he's drawing sketchy, they're very deliberate, carved out or pliable 3D shapes. So trying to wrap your head around a little bit how he thinks through 3D form and stuff. Like the 3D form is like there. The basics of the sense of the 3D form are there in the gesture drawings and the instruction drawings he does for you to play with. So try to be a little bit more confident with picking up what he's putting down, basically. I'm going to be working on that too because I want to absorb from this. I want to absorb from him and like studio trigger artists in general. So I don't see anyone else posting anything, so we're probably going to call it a night right now. Thank you all for coming. We will be doing another session, a sequel session tomorrow, same time, 5:30 p.m. And we'll be getting in a good arc torso anatomy workout. Congratulations.
Congratulations!
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 Congratulations! Thank you all.